I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. I would ask if there's anyone else recording this meeting. Seeing none, if you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. I don't see any citizens to comment, so we will move right on to special recognitions. Dr. Chamberlain?
Good evening, Mr. Scobie. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. We do have a special recognition this evening. As announced last Monday evening, the Auburn School community tragically lost 8th grade student Ray Littman due to a brief illness. Ray's services are tomorrow evening from 3 to 5 at Faith Baptist Church. At this time, I ask we pause for a moment of silence in Ray's memory. Thank you.
We do not have a student representative's report, so we'll move right on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think this evening we're going to discuss the superintendent's status.
Superintendent status, update on status of the superintendent and possible vote to appoint acting superintendent. Based on recent developments and finding out that the superintendent would at least temporarily not be able to carry out his duties, I would entertain a motion to appoint Dr. Beth Chamberlain acting superintendent.
I'll make that motion to appoint Dr. Chamberlain acting superintendent for the Auburn Public Schools.
I'd second that.
Is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Chamberlain.
Thank you very much.
And we now move on to unfinished business.
So I'll give you a brief update on behalf of Dr. Hanfield related to where we stand with COVID. As you've seen, I hope, we have seen somewhat of a decline in some of our positive cases. If we look back to January 10th, which was last Monday, it was a 3-day weekend because we had a Friday. We had the Friday due to snow. We reported 95 cases on January 10th. This past Tuesday, after 3 days after the MLK holiday, we reported 55 positive cases in the school, and today was just 16. So certainly, you can't count that it's going to continue that way in a straight, in a downward trend, but it does seem like we are heading in the right direction, which is very encouraging. Close contacts have been diminishing as well. So that's very exciting, and we hope that continues. The one big update to provide related to COVID is many of you may have seen yesterday on the news that the Department of Education, in conjunction with the Department of Public Health and the Governor's Office, have provided us with a new potential testing protocol for students and staff. The testing protocol would provide for all students and staff who opt in 2 COVID tests. So a COVID test actually weekly. You get one each week that you would conduct at home during a designated day that we might pick for the district. But what that requires is that we would then stop all contact tracing in the building. So that would mean that we wouldn't have the close contacts that would then need to be identified, tracked by the nurse, documented by the nurse, put through test and stay, and monitored for 5 days, which I will tell you has been like a fire hose of work for our nursing staff. And while we're not afraid of work, because if it's work that's going to help us, we're going to do it, what we have seen is that the payoff isn't really there. So I looked this morning, we had conducted 5,555 COVID tests in test and stay. Of those, 72 came back positive, which brings us to about a 1.23% positivity. And so, yes, we do have students that have tested positive in test and stay, but when we weigh that against the effort, the time, the manpower, the stress that puts on staff and students, we're not sure that the payoff is there because it's just such a small number that actually come back positive. And it's not just Auburn that's showing those results. That's statewide, and that's in many states across the country, that they're finding that test and stay for close contacts or pool testing, which in reality is a similar thing, right? You're testing people who are not symptomatic, is resulting in very few positive cases being identified. Now, that doesn't mean that none are identified. Certainly some are. But with what's required and the cost and the time, it just doesn't seem feasible to continue with what we've been doing. In speaking with, I met with the Board of Health yesterday, which was required of this new policy, if we are to pursue it. They're in full support. They're moving the same way, where you're monitoring just symptomatic people. So we would still have test and stay in the building, but it would only be for symptomatic students or staff. It wouldn't be for close contacts.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so they were in full support. From their point of view, they feel like this is the next logical step in this ever-developing and ever-changing process that we've gone through, with first not testing at all and then moving to testing, and the changes in the protocols and the timeframes. They all feel like it's much more important now to focus on testing those that are symptomatic, and to see where that stands. So Leah Gauthier was there as well. Meg McCrillis was there. And this afternoon I had a chance to meet with our remaining nursing staff to get some feedback from them. They too feel like that while this may be challenging, right, for us to acclimate to, because it'll be a big change, they feel like health-wise this is the best step forward for kids and for staff. Their main concern, and one that is mine as well, is that any change like this could be the staff, the teaching staff and support staff, they're going to require a lot of support to understand it, right? The nursing staff live and talk about this all day long. They're going to just need some education and some support and some guidance on what this means for them, and certainly for their safety, because we don't want to do anything that would jeopardize their safety or the safety of our students. So I do believe that the protocol is in your packet, the entire guidelines as it came from DESE, but I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions if any of you have any.
Okay, I do have a question through the chair. And I looked and I couldn't actually find this on any website either, so this might not have come through. But what do you do if you have an exceedingly low percentage of families that consent to doing the at-home testing? Because it didn't seem like that. I didn't know if there had been a lower limit, like a threshold.
Yeah, so they've not set thresholds, and what they're hoping to do, and again, this is all brand new, right? This came out yesterday, and I don't think it was planned much before that by DESE either. But they did talk about it today in a webinar, saying that they're putting some things together that will encourage folks to participate and ways to help that happen, and that it can happen on a rolling basis, right? So much like, I mean, we still just now acquire consent for test and stay for some folks, because it's the first time their kids have been a close contact and they're just providing consent now, and we started that back in October. But I will say I am encouraged. I did put out a feeler form to our staff, because it's two separate populations to see who would be willing to participate. And as of this afternoon, I had 280 staff members out of about 424 that responded yes. And I gave them till tomorrow afternoon before they had to respond. So I may get more than that. I think that's a pretty robust response for something that they don't have a lot of information on yet, you know? So I hope and will work really diligently to make sure that between myself and the principals, we really communicate this to the families about how important this is and what this will do for us. And I think families, this is going to make the burden on them for having kids out and test and stay and all of those things, it's going to mitigate a lot of that for them, and help keep kids in school.
Well, no, that makes sense. And through the chair, I just have one other question, if it's all right. Just following up to the families question. Are we, because it didn't seem clear, or different districts, it was left to their discretion to do in terms of notification, because I would anticipate that people will feel very strongly one way or the other about whether or not they still want to get notified. I know, even if we're not contact tracing, but if we know something happened in a gym class or whatever.
Yeah, no,
are
and
they
we
still
actually
gonna
talked about that.
continue?
We are.
Because I think that
Yep.
will make parents feel much better if they at
Yep.
least know, like, that your allergies might not be allergies or something.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and the nursing staff agreed as well, that we would still notify the classroom, or for instance, at the middle school, sometimes it's more of the team
Yeah.
that would get notified to say that there had been a positive case.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. No,
Yeah, I think
and
that's an important communication to have with families.
No, I agree, and I think that, I mean, I hope that that makes our nursing staff be able to breathe a little bit and focus more on the nursing, the
Yeah.
nursing side. So that's all my questions.
Good questions. Very good. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Moving on.
All right, great. Along those same lines, you may all know the mask mandate has been extended to February 28th of 2022 by the commissioner. He will reevaluate as that date approaches, but the mask mandate stays in place. And I think overall, our kids do a great job, even our most young students, with wearing masks, and some of our older ones as well. I think when I'm at the high school, I think they do a pretty good job, so. Moving on, this is a repeat from the last meeting about the draft budget. So there's no change in information about that. We did meet with the town today. We continue to wait on our Chapter 70 funding, which I believe Cecilia indicated would be hopefully in the next week or so. This is usually the time of year that we would find out what that is. Town is still waiting on some final income numbers on their hotel and motel tax and excise and that kind of thing. So more meetings to come. We're just starting the process, but we did meet with the town, and those meetings will move forward. Any questions? No.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on.
In your packet, Dr. Hanfield had planned to share with you, we pulled out some of our old fee schedules. Some are old, some are new. One is a summary page that has some information on our preschool pricing, satellite pricing, the amount we pay for our substitute teachers in general. Wanting to know, I think he was looking for some guidance if we should pursue any kind of changes to any of these fees. Some of them, you'll see, have been in place for some time, particularly if you look at the form on the back that has to do with like the cafeteria and using the presentation room. That hasn't been looked at since 2011.
Oh, wow.
So he thought to give you the opportunity to just take a peek and see if you think what's there is still feasible and reasonable. And if you'd like us to pursue any updates to any of this. I will tell you the two areas we talked a lot about were preschool, which preschool was updated very recently, but we are still very reasonably priced compared to area preschools. Given the length of our day, particularly for our 4-year-olds, the certified nature of our teachers, having, special education backgrounds, and the like. So that's one area that seemingly we could still be competitive if that were to increase a bit. And the other area are the substitute teachers. Those haven't been looked at in a bit. And times change, and I will tell you, even though I've done probably 4 or 5 sub-trainings with fairly good turnout, at least 5 people. I mean, I've done them previously last year with the year before with 1 person. So I think the turnout's been good, but nonetheless, we'll have days where we maybe only have 4 subs in the district, across the district with a number of staff out. So there's a lot of staff shifting that's happening to cover classrooms and the like. So there's a lot of talk in the area. I know Cecilia's heard it on her little listserv about districts really looking carefully at what they're paying their subs to see if that can entice anybody to kind of come on a little bit. So I think Dr. Hanfield just wanted you to take this time, take a look, and maybe we'll revisit it at a subsequent meeting. And if there's anything else you would need related to that, we can certainly get more information.
I think that, we need to, at some point in the near future, address the substitute pay. We need to make sure that we have, qualified individuals in front of our students, and when I say qualified, I'm not asking for even a bachelor's degree or master's degree, but someone who can go in there and get the job done. And we are competing with other districts right now, and we're losing out to some of them. Regarding the other fees, anything that's going to, take away from residents, like the preschool cost. I think that type of thing I'd like to see. We could certainly have discussions, but maybe pushed off until, post-pandemic, until people are back on their feet again. There's just so much. I don't know. There's so many people adjusting their schedules, having to stay home for various reasons. Hopefully, these new protocols are going to help with that a little bit. Maybe solidify people's work schedules. But right now, I would just focus on trying to. I don't know where we're going to find the revenue for that, but upping that sub pay a little bit. And I'm okay also with outside entities being charged a little bit more to rent our facilities. Those are just my feelings. And I'm willing to address all of that, in the future, as I said, post-pandemic. But right now, we'll just keep it tabled for discussion, if that's okay with all of you.
Yeah, through the chair, I know that and someone who's a retired teacher lives in Auburn but travels to Shrewsbury a few days a week. And I know Shrewsbury's obviously a whole different town, but should rather drive out there because she gets paid so much better out there. So I think that's a definite area that we can increase a little. But I'm in full agreement. We should at least wait till the end of the year for the preschool.
Did you say that's your neighbor, Mike?
No.
Oh, I was
Just
going to
somebody
say
else.
maybe you could sweeten the deal by making a few meals or something, or some cookies.
You don't want to eat my meals.
Good point.
Through the chair, I agree. I'm all for, looking at our sub rates now, even now. I mean, honestly, Maddie had a class the other day that just didn't have a sub. So they just let themselves in and got on their iPads and went to work because the sub that was going to show up didn't show up. So, and they scrambled and fixed it. So I am all for, making that decision, tonight if we whatever the rate you guys would suggest. But I also agree with George in terms of the non-Auburn and non-nonprofit rates going up.
Yeah.
I would like a little more time just to look through these and maybe see what other towns offer, but I think that that's, reasonable, especially since, we do ultimately pay for it in the maintenance of our buildings, and our taxpayers have already paid for that, so I would be happy to leverage that. So.
Yeah, and I'm not saying not to continue the conversation about all of it. I mean, we can keep that open. I'm game for that. It's just right now, I just don't want to, I don't want to hurt the taxpayers, residents in any way.
And I think through the chair, when we do revisit the preschool, I'd like to see what surrounding preschools are charging as well and go from there. I mean, that is a steal for preschool, what we're offering, so.
And that's the fine line though, of, do you scare families away? Like, what is the sweet spot for it? And I would assume we'd still keep the sliding scale.
Of course. Yep. And I will tell you, I'm curious to see, there's been a lot of talk at the federal level related to some
Yes,
funding
there
for
is.
Yeah.
preschool. I think that's all kind of held up right now. But that may come along and really give some people some help, which would be
nice.
Yeah.
terrific.
Actually, through the chair in Alabama, they piloted a program that it's free preschool from 3 and up all day. And it was done through federal money, but that state is a pilot. So now every child in Alabama can go to preschool for free. So hopefully the pilot study will yield good results and
Right.
that will come our way. So.
Right.
But through the chair, our preschool is above and beyond having a child that went through it. I mean, it is a steal for what you get in a preschool.
Yeah, and if your child is gonna go to Auburn Public afterwards, it's the best,
Right.
introduction and just segue there, so.
Yep. It's a great
Absolutely.
transition.
Well, also, speaking as a retired teacher, who in the summer of 2010, and from then on, subbed in Auburn, this is the same pay I was getting in 2010.
Yeah.
I think it's time they up it a bit.
Are you going to get back into the game again, Gil?
No. I'm afraid of COVID. And I don't like to get up in the morning, as people that know me well.
That's the real reason.
Here we go.
So then through the chair, how do we go about, I know zero about what a sub should actually be paid, but are we comfortable, leaving that at your discretion for what those rates would be?
I
Or
just
do we
think we,
need to, do we need tonight to define the schedule, like the fee schedule?
I think we can
For the
talk about it
subs?
next time, right? Like if we
Yeah,
got
I think-
some-
Oh,
I
I was
think-
thinking tomorrow, get
Oh.
it.
If you'd like, I could, related to subpay, we could put together a small table with some surrounding towns.
Yeah, that's
So you could
Perfect.
see where we fall, and then we can look at it the next meeting.
That would be good.
And that would help to make a reasonable decision, perhaps.
And,
I
and
thought I read that Shrewsbury was like 130.
It's a lot.
A
I mean,
day.
Yeah.
it's a whole different town, but
Yeah, I know, in a huge district.
it is a lot. But if we bumped it up, I know this teacher would stay in Auburn
Mm.
if it was for the pay.
yeah, we don't need to be
Opposite.
Shrewsbury and Westboro,
No, but it'd be
but
nice to have that.
Millbury,
information.
Sutton,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Spencer,
yeah.
Oxford.
I remember also, there was some talk about paying Auburn retired teachers more than a retired teacher off the street, but I guess it never came to pass.
I actually I wouldn't be opposed to that, only because they would.
They know the system, they know the
Right.
players.
I mean, if that's a thing that other districts do, I
Mm-hmm.
would have no.
But yeah, that's certainly something we could consider.
Keeping your own people subbing.
Right, especially if you
Who knows
know.
what kind of gems we'll get.
Yeah,
I'm on board with that. But yeah, let's put together some comps, and as soon as they're together, Dr. Chamberlain, you could send them out to us to
Okay.
have a look.
Great.
And then I'm not rushing you. I'm just saying as soon as there's no need to wait until the whole packet comes out. We could
Okay.
start looking at it.
Yeah,
Right.
whatever will help get bodies in the building.
I know.
But again, no expectations because we've got a lot of other things going on right now. So, all right, we now move on to new business.
In new business, in your packet, you'll find a letter from the Director of Food Services, Mrs. Janice King. Mrs. King is requesting the start rate for casual cafeteria assistants to increase from $13 per hour to $14 per hour to remain competitive in the labor market.
I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to accept the start rate for casual cafeteria assistants increase from $13 per hour to $14 per hour.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that?
Think it makes sense?
No, we want to be able to keep hiring people, so if that's what it takes, then that's what we should do.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. And we now move on to teaching and learning. Dr. Chamberlain, again?
Yes, two very quick items, actually. So HSSEIP, the High School Senior Educational Internship Program, is once again being offered through DESE and the Mass Higher Workforce Board. So if you remember, last year, we welcomed 10 high school seniors who were in good academic standing. We created Mr. DeLongchamp actually created a schedule for them to go to certain schools to provide small group assistance, reading with children, helping them with their classwork, supervision in the cafeteria, all of those things. So primarily kids who may be interested in becoming teachers or going into the field of education. So once again, that funding is available. The students would be allowed to go work 12 hours for 10 weeks. Again, they're compensated through the Workforce Board. I believe they said they'd make $14.25 an hour this year. I think there's been a bit of an increase there. And so, yes, we're looking forward to offering that program. Again, Mrs. Worsbicky nicely attended a webinar for me around some of the details with that. So Mr. DeLongchamp is gathering interest now, and hopefully we'll be able to start soon. So it was really well received by the staff where the kids went last year, so they appreciated the help. So another way to get some help into our buildings. And yeah, and again, we'll follow all the COVID protocols where they had to make sure that they had done their zip slip and that they had, no symptoms or anything like that upon coming in the building. And other volunteers, particularly like in the preschool, we ask that they be vaccinated before they're working with younger children who may or may not have had the chance to be vaccinated yet. So those things will be in place.
Great.
And our tier focus monitoring visit, I have mentioned this previously, but we are required by the process to ensure that this has been made public. Mrs. Reedy had it put out in Dr. Hanfield's last updates and reminders. They will be here visiting us on February 2nd. They'll be touring our school buildings and conducting interviews with staff and some parents. And it's being done related to special education and civil rights. And so this Office of Public School Monitoring does this with all districts across the state. We just happen to, this is our year to be up for this process. We've already submitted a wide range of documents for their review. We've already gotten some feedback from them on things that they'd like us to tweak a little bit. But yes, we welcome them to come, and they'll provide us with some good feedback and just another way for us to continue to get better.
Great.
Okay,
Any comments? All right, we now move on to a fan favorite. Celia, business and financial.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make it very brief tonight.
good evening.
In front of you, in your packet, I have a year-to-date budget report dated January 14th for your review. And I'm also provided a listing of budget transfers dated January 14th, some that are between the same series for your information, and a listing of transfers between different series, for which I'm seeking your approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to approve the list of transfers dated January 14th, 2022, as presented by the business manager.
Second, I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Looks very thorough.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote.
Okay, and that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent report. We now move on to policies.
So in your packet, I provided you with both our previous restraint policy and an updated restraint policy. So as I noted, this came out of some of the conversations already about the tiered focus monitoring review. The policy that we had previously is similar to the new one that I present to you, but the new one reflects all of the updated regulations from the state. So when they looked at the previous policy as written, they wanted me to update it any place that the number of that the legal number was cited. Well, once you do that, you change the whole context of everything. So I went to the DESI site, I took all the exact regulations, which actually are very easy to read and procedurally appropriate for anybody to follow, and said, why are we going to change any of this? It's best to just follow the regulation as is. So the new one is simply that, a copy and paste of the regulations directly from the state.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to adopt the policy JKAA, physical restraint of students, as updated in January 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that?
Just have a question. It says the staff should be trained. Whose job is it to train the staff with all these regulations?
Yeah, so that is part of the overall staff review that we do at the beginning of each year. We do an online training. We have a very lengthy PowerPoint that covers some of the key features around restraint. But any staff member who would be involved in a restraint would complete CPI training. And that's a very formal training. Your first round of it takes 3 full days of training so that you know exactly, de-escalation techniques and all the things that go along with that. But everybody's responsible to make sure they know when they might need help with that. So everyone does receive that at the start of each year, and we have a whole list of staff who receive the in-depth training.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. Unanimous. Thank you for that. Anything else before I entertain a motion for executive session?
No, Mr. Chair.
I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss physical condition of an employee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Dr. McCrillis?
Yes.
Ms. Soloway?
Yes.
Ms. Harrington?
Yes.
Ms. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Scobie, yes. It is a vote. Good night, everyone.